All right, Damo, let's start with the best game of the round, and that was Brisbane-Richmond at the Triple MCG.
It was. For the second consecutive 3:20 match on the Sunday, it was just a ripper, Bill. It really was. And to be 42 points down as they were, the Tigers, with some adversity kicking in on a few fronts, obviously, Dylan Grimes going down, and just the weight of losing matches they should have either won or not drawn in the previous 5-6 weeks, and to then kick through and do it with a real flair too. Shea Bolton was just unbelievable, Jim. I know you're in transit, but he was unbelievable, as was Trent Cotchin in the second half, just to will himself and his team back over the top. Loved Rioli's game, loved him seizing the moment in that last quarter with the long bomb goal, but it was also what he did on Charlie Cameron at key moments to stop Charlie Cameron, the great Charlie Cameron, from kicking goals. And if there's a better story than Noah Cumberland's comeback, the poor guy who for those who forget, had the football in his hands when the siren sounded the previous week in that drawn game against Fremantle, to respond with a 6-kick performance, but five of the 6 kicks to be goals in a game you win by 7 points to keep your season alive. It's a great story.
He gets every bit of the ball every time.
But clever.
There's an old-fashioned footy brain in there, isn't there?
Let me read you something out, Purple. You might have seen this. Written by multiple premiership defender for Brisbane, Mal Michael. Did you see what he said?
Mal Michael.
He said, "I'll say it again and I'll keep saying it until it sinks in. Brisbane can't defend. Without a defensive mindset, they will unravel against the better teams in finals. Defence wins premierships." It's pretty heavy.
It's very heavy from a 3-time flag winner of the footy
Who
club.
knows about defending?
It's hard to
42 points up.
Yeah, disagree with what he has said there. There's some genuine worries. We'll get to them on the negatives.
I'll tell you what they missed,
Jim.
Zach Barley.
Yeah, well, they did, and they without him for the second half of the second quarter and the entire second half, he spent the night in hospital. He's been discharged, Bill. It's a bruised kidney, but he was coughing up blood, and they were genuinely worried about it.
It didn't look much, but it didn't look much.
It got him in the kidney.
Yeah.
Look, the match review office will look at it, but we've had a look at all the vision, and it just doesn't jump out at you. There's anything other than just a clash of footy. So,
finishing on Richmond, I love the fact that it meant so much to them to win for Shane Edwards. Good clubs win milestone games. I always think that.
Yeah,
and
they do.
Well, because he's been a ripper, Shane Edwards.
Yeah, he has been. And look, he just had his little deft touches here and there yesterday. It wasn't his best game, but he just did enough. Again, without sort of putting an order on it, Geelong's surge is compelling now, isn't it? And what they did against the Western Bulldogs on Saturday night, Bill, was really good. And the beauty of it, they've got to this point this year without much impact from Paddy Dangerfield. Well, that changed on the weekend. He was best on ground. The coaches have officially given him that title today. So,
and Joel was quiet. He was fantastic and all. But there's a couple of good players that go quiet, and then these other boys step up. And then to kick 8 goals like that, it just shows they can do it. So because they were asleep for the first.
Yeah, but it was 8 goals in the third quarter, 9 in succession, which has been a problem for the Bulldogs throughout the course of this year, going back to last year's grand final, actually. But the methodical way they just bring the ball forward, Jim, there's layers to it that the lay person wouldn't totally understand, but there's differences in how they do it, and they can just cut through any other team, the best ones, the ordinary ones, I liken them to what Melbourne was doing last year. Remember Simon Goodwin, about round 6, 7, 8 last year, 2021, they win the flag, said, we just wait till the game gets on our terms. There's an element of that with Geelong at the moment this year. To your point, Bill, they were all at sea early.
They were. Yep. Segler in the ruck too, interesting.
Yeah,
just
they wanted to get him in, didn't they? They were desperate to get him in. They got him in. Stanley will come back, but how that looks with both of them in the same team, I don't claim to know.
And
but
the thing about that is, this time last year, there were lots of people being critical of Chris Scott because they thought that Geelong were very careful with the footy, and they were, but they're not now. So he needs to, if he was criticised this time last year, he needs to be congratulated this year for the change in what they're doing, because they're so much more dangerous when they're going forward.
Absolutely they are. And there's a sense of equal, isn't there? There was a bit of a hierarchy without them probably intending it to be the case. And led by Dangerfield and Selwood and Hawkins. But now they're just equals. I mean, Hawkins and Cameron are prepared to go around and kick 2 goals each in a game of footy and celebrate every goal moment because Close is coming through. Atkins is coming through.
You know what happens to coaches? They become stubborn, I reckon, after a while. And they don't want to move or do
anything. They're born stubborn.
So certainly that at Brisbane, not too many movements there, is it? Like they get stubborn and they don't make any change. That's what supporters dislike.
Back to Friday night, we'll just quickly touch on Melbourne because it was a genuine positive out of the week ends matches. They had gone into that game only winning 3 of their previous 8 and just demolished Fremantle. You caught it, Jim. From the absolute outset, that chain of handballs that the Dockers had in the first minute, there were 9 handballs, 1 kick, and they ended up moving the ball about 3 metres across the ground. And Melbourne was just away from that moment. Sydney Swans, they only beat GWS, but they've changed their style in the last 5 weeks. John Longmire was pretty keen for them to be the hard, competitive, tackling side, and they've become that in the space of 5-6 weeks. They're number 1 now in recent weeks on that. They weren't early on, Bill. They were still getting wins without being that team early on, but now they've become a complete package. 4 in a row. They've won 7 of 9, Jim, which puts him into that nice zone because you've got to be hitting the line hard at this stage. Give a quick wrap for St Kilda. Just want to get your thoughts on what Brett Ratton said, though, after they had a consecutive win against Hawthorn.
Probably everyone that speaks about us speaks about half empty. Every time we speak to somebody, we're not going so well, we don't do this, we don't do that. We won the game of footy. We didn't play the game for 4 quarters how we wanted to. We took 4 points, we won contested ball. We didn't win the inside 50s, we had 25 shots at goal, but everyone can keep looking at how negative the Saints are and what the Saints are doing. We won a game of footy, so I think it would be nice for people to sort of say, yeah, well done.
I get where he's coming from, but you just beat Hawthorn and fell in. I think we need more evidence, don't we?
Well, the evidence for me is the percentage. They've got comfortably the worst percentage in the top 10. Or in the 8 and in the top 10. Collingwood don't have a great percentage either. But it's so that tells you plenty, I reckon, about how you're going. Yeah. Good on them for winning, and I'm a Brett Ratton fan, but the percentage would be a worry for me if I'm a Saints fan.
No, I agree. But and I get where he's coming from because, they are hard to win games of footy and you shouldn't underestimate that. But I'm not getting too excited after a win against Hawthorn. And, Bill, I wouldn't normally touch on Gold Coast, but there's storylines out of it with Tuke Miller, who I know you love for the Brownlow. And
backed him.
Did you? Yep. There you go.
Responsibly. Responsibly.
And the other guy that you once called on live TV, Choi, Mubby or Chol.
Phones.
43 goals.
5 goals,
5 goals yesterday.
He has been a revelation.
Yeah.
And I love the way he goes about it. And it's because he's been allowed to have the phone on the ground up there. So the AFL have allowed him.
Have they?
He can wear the
iWatch.
You're
not allowed to,
he can wear the iWatch so he can just keep an eye on what's coming through. And it's freed him up.
I saw him. He actually left the ground there
he would have
on the weekend. Left the ground.
Just a return text.
Well, I think it was had 3 or 4.
He would have and just made sure his kicking action is as sweet as any in the comp.
And it needed to be in the last quarter when West Coast was surging. He just took a mark and went back and just casually put it right through the middle for what was his 5th goal.
He loves us, by the way.
Does he?
He loves us.
Yeah, he doesn't hear this.
Well, he's top 10 on the goal kicking list, Jim, which I think is a great effort because I didn't think he had that ability when he left Richmond last year to go and be at that team, and I think what he's done has been a really good storyline, not just for Gold Coast, but AFL in 2022.
All right, we get negative next.
We'll get negative.
Because there's a few around.
More with Damian Barrett next on the Rush Hour. Triple M. Only 3 rounds of the home and away season remain. Damian Barrett's in the studio.
So, the big focus for me is Carlton.
Yeah.
Brisbane in Brisbane, Melbourne at the MCG, Collingwood at the MCG is their run home. If they miss all 3 of them, they are likely to miss the finals.
And it would be strange given they've already got 12 wins to their name to actually still miss the 8 with that many wins. But, well, one would secure it the way
you'd think.
I'd read it. Now,
it might come down to that final game against Collingwood.
It could.
Which will have 90,000 at it.
They've only won 4 of their last 9, so that's been a problem. And the magic's gone, hasn't it? There was some magic there at one stage of the season. Now they can rediscover it, obviously, but not the way they played against Adelaide.
So when we're doing all of these machinations, St Kilda played Geelong, Brisbane, Sydney, so that's a brutal run for them. So they're the 2 teams at the bottom of the ladder.
Yep.
Of the 8.
7 and 8. Yep.
And then you get Richmond,
9.
Have got Port Adelaide, Hawthorn, Essendon.
Now that's of those teams competing, that's the easiest trio of matches, I feel.
And then the Dogs have Freo, Giants, Hawthorn.
And that's probably easy.
So what I love is the fact that we are still discussing who can end up 7th and 8th at this time of the season.
So Richmond and Dogs could go in.
Well, everything would need to go right.
And the Saints have got Cats, Lions, Sydney.
I just said that.
Yeah. No, you didn't. Hey, did Jack Silvani play, by the way?
He played as the sub, the medical sub.
He came
in. Yeah, but it was out of the 22, which was a
was
surprise.
he always going? Was that always going to happen, or do you reckon there was pressure, or?
Michael Voss wouldn't be able to pressure. If he took him out of the 22, he must have, I would imagine, have him in mind to be the 23rd as the sub. Yeah.
What's happened to him, the Blues?
It's a good question. Other teams have worked them out. They were out toughed on the weekend. If you had a look at what Adelaide Crows did, which was interesting in itself, and the targeting of Sard by Ben Keys was a key to that, and that, I think that will be something that other teams embrace in the run home to the finals and the finals if they're there. So major worry, Jim. Brisbane we touched on before, the Zach Bailey injury. Bill, we don't know whether he's going to miss this next game, but he's clearly gone back with a badly bruised kidney.
Sorry, Fogan say anything about the MCG, or has just had enough of it?
Well, to me, that wasn't the reason they lost. They just weren't good enough.
But it was at the MCG
it
again,
was.
I know.
Yeah, and it now means that they've lost 11 since 2014, and it's even worse if you go back to 2004. But, in the relatively modern times and under him, it's just not good enough, is it, the way they did it, given they were 42 points up. Need to get to GWS with what Mark McVeigh said. Now, he's been in the interim capacity as coach there now for 10 matches. He's had the 3 wins against the 3 teams down the bottom of the ladder. We get to this stage, 3 matches remaining, and he's making extraordinary statements of this type.
It's just unfortunate part of dealing with whether players have checked out or not. If I look at the list, I reckon there was probably 8 players that really went to the wall today. You talk about Kelly, Whitfield, Perriman, Taylor, Ward, Hogan, Green and Kennedy. But, 8 players doing that's not enough. Yeah, I'm extremely disappointed with today. We embarrassed our club.
And he went further. But
he actually named the 8.
He named the 8, and you could see that he had rattled them off, so he'd written them down or at least identified them on a sheet.
So they were the 8 that got the job done.
So there's 14 that did.
So there's 14 that did, including Taranto and Hopper, who we don't expect to be there next year, and whether that was a pointed reference at that aspect of it, who knows. And then he went further by naming Taylor and Perriman as, in his eyes, future leaders of the club, and suggesting that they need to be those official leaders almost now because the old leadership regime has not worked. It's as extraordinary a press conference as we've seen by a coach.
Has he done himself damage?
I reckon he has. Yeah, now people can say, look, we live in a world of vanilla where coaches say nothing, and we do. But I don't know whether it's in his capacity as interim coach to be raising all of this at this stage. It's just an opinion I've got on it. And also, too, Bill, he has been there himself since 2014. So as an assistant coach and a senior assistant coach, some of what he's talking about has been under his watch. I don't want to make it, directly referring back to him in the problems that he may have caused, but someone must be at that footy club allowing him to talk like that because we just haven't seen it and we don't see it.
Well, I like Spike and we all do. He's one of those great blokes to chat to, but it jumped out of the page. I didn't see any of the game, but when I read the paper, I went, wow. That is unbelievable.
It was all going well early with him, but it's just dropped right off.
It has, well, he opened it up, didn't he? And they were more attacking, and there's a few disciplinary issues.
5 blokes on $1 million. They've got too many blokes on too high a contract.
Well, Cornelio, Kelly and Green are on massive deals, and then you understand why they reacted the way they did at those times, particularly for Green.
But they're a worry. They are a worry.
Massive worry, Bill. Yeah, and they've got to offload $1 million before the new coach gets them to come in. So you just go back to 2020, though, when Aidan Corr was discovered by the club to have been in contact, and official contact with North Melbourne to want to be there. They kicked him out. So whether they're going to do something like that along those... I don't agree with that, by the way, because I think clubs make adverse decisions on players and only tell them in the official timings of the season. And yet I thought it was very hypocritical for a club to then kick a player out like Aidan Corr. Jeremy Cameron left at the same time. So, I mean, some bigger names have left the club, Bill, and not...
How many do you reckon will leave? Do you reckon, all right, Taranto, gone?
He's... Yeah, it just seems likely he's gone.
Hopper?
Yeah, seems gone.
Matty Bruin?
Seems gone.
Tanner?
Yeah.
His dad's Matty. Tanner Bruin? Yeah.
That's his name, yeah.
Well, his dad's.
He didn't play on the weekend, but therefore he wasn't one of the not named. But yeah, it wasn't... it was very strange.
Caniglio and all that?
Oh, well, I think that if you're going to take him on, there's a lot of salary to take on in some form. Even half what he's on, which should be close to $1 million, is going to be a lot, Bill.
Will Clarkson want to coach them? Or would he rather coach a side like North Melbourne?
My reading of that is of the 2 available options, North Melbourne would be his preferred option, but that's not to mean that he will coach North Melbourne either. So have you got any intel on that, Jim, since we spoke to you on Saturday?
No, I don't know
been
anything.
in Perth.
It doesn't matter. He's still got phones and things.
I flew back from Perth at midnight last night.
You've got a computer and you've got phones.
Having had a family weekend.
They still ring you, Jim.
I'll tell you what it is a huge game for Freo. It's the season-defining game of footy for them against the Western Bulldogs because they were poor.
They were very poor.
And we've got a huge audience in Perth.
Yeah.
Which I've just discovered.
Oh,
they listen, they love us over there. So we need to talk about this club because they've played some really good footy throughout the middle part of this season. but it has fallen away a bit of late, and they were poor on Friday night, so they've got to respond.
A spark, haven't they? They've become that dour team that they were in re-establishing themselves up the ladder. Yeah,
5 goals in a whole game of footy is not getting the job done.
They haven't had a good forward all year, really.
Well, and that's an issue.
Lobby's been okay.
Taberner,
I think he's been more than okay, but his last game wasn't in that category. With that game, I believe Jim with Fremantle playing the Bulldogs. I feel there'll be consideration given to Sam Darcy to get his debut. It'll be a great moment for him.
14 marks,
20
VFL.
touches.
Yes.
Yeah, he's now had 2 months of VFL action. He's been used as a defender, as a forward, as a ruckman. I think there's enough grounding now. There's 2 months of grounding in the VFL. Now, whether they want to pull the trigger this week,
my understanding is he's already a lot better than his father and already a much better bloke.
Is he?
So he's ticking both boxes already.
Luke's a nice
at 18.
At 18.
Yeah. So that's good. Get him in. I want to see him play ASAP.
He's actually grown since he's joined the club. He's up to 208
4 centimetres
now.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right, we're doing buses or are we dropping the buses?
We'll leave the buses parked. We'll just park them for a moment.
You know what else you got to promote? Mason Redman. How well is he going?
I love his story.
Superstar. And
I hope he wins the best and fairest.
Coleman. What's his first name?
Coleman.
Yes.
Don't help him.
Sorry.
Him.
Cadean. Go with Kitty, though. They call him Kitty.
Him. Yeah.
Beautiful. Great player. So well done.
Good game yesterday, too. Really good game.
And Tuke Miller, get on.
Nice, Purple. Drive the price down.
Damo's recovery session.
Justin Langer to join us after 5, but for now, here's Wonderwall.